What's going on, everyone? So there is this like fake report I've seen kind of making its rounds, and people sharing it and stuff like that. And I always try to look into stuff because when there's a lot of consensus, it's kind of like, okay, did this come from something I just missed it, or is it just like nonsense? You trail it back, all right, it's total nonsense. Basically is about Utah declining a trade that Lakers offered. The supposed offer that the Lakers had was D'Angelo Russell, Cam Reddish, first round pick, multiple second round picks for Lauri Markkanen, right? Silly, everybody knows that Utah is wanting much more than that. That wouldn't even get it done. That'd get you laughed out of the room. But it has what Danny Ainge wants, and I think it's nonsense. But it's the offseason. Let's have some fun. Nothing wrong with a little conversation video and just kind of see where are people. I want to see what is your thoughts on what is too much, what is not enough. So let's dive into this a little bit, right? Again, want to clarify, it's just noise, right? If it does turn out to be something, then maybe this random person is some insider that made some fake account. I don't know. But just, again, fun conversation. This is YouTube, entertainment. Let's talk. Let's have some fun, right? So, supposedly, Danny Ainge wants Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, multiple first-round picks in exchange for Lauri Markkanen and Colin Sexton. So, right, doesn't say how many. Again, nonsense. I want to clarify that. I want that to be clear. But doesn't say how many first-round picks, which is why I want to kind of explore. Let's dive into this a little bit, right? What is too much for a guy like Lauri Markkanen? Because a lot of people I've seen, they don't care. They just sell the farm for Lauri Markkanen, right? Everybody not named LeBron James and Anthony Davis, boom, give it up for Lauri Markkanen. I don't necessarily feel that way personally. I think Lauri Markkanen has a terrible injury history. You're going to have to pay him $40+ million a year. And is he your second best player on the championship team, right? Especially alongside Anthony Davis. It's a real question, right? And you're going to have to pay him as such. Right, where somebody like a Zach LaVine, yes, he's making $40+ million a year. Yes, I don't necessarily think he's the second best player alongside Anthony Davis for a championship team, but his contract is pre the new TV deal, right? So his contract will actually get better over time than a Lauri Markkanen's, who his is going to be based on the new structure of the salary cap. It gets percentage based on the salary cap, right? So his contract is probably going to be in the 50s at some point, right? So that's where the dilemma lies. But as far as Austin Reeves being traded, right? Austin Reeves, according to the Lakers, is prime Michael Jordan. They will not trade Austin Reeves for anybody other than a bona fide superstar. And, look, I like Austin Reeves a lot. Talked heavily about Austin Reeves. But I don't believe anybody is untradeable for the right price. I don't want to just trade Austin Reeves, I'm not swapping Austin Reeves for Colin Sexton, right? That's silly, right? Austin Reeves is the better player. However you feel about Austin Reeves, he's the better player. I like Austin Reeves a lot. I think he is very valuable. I think he's very good. He's the Lakers' best asset. But would you trade him for Lauri Markkanen? Now, to me, again, let's kind of refresh, right? So Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, multiple first-round picks in exchange for Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton. If the Lakers could get Walker Kessler in that deal, if you could get me Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton, and Walker Kessler for Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, they're also taking Gabe Vincent's contract. By the way, you get to keep D'Angelo Russell, which means you could still potentially trade it. And then you go and say, you trade, say your 2 firsts and 2 pick swaps or something, right? I would do that all day long. Because now you're not just giving up Austin Reeves for a Colin Sexton. You're giving up Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura for a Colin Sexton, a Walker Kessler, and Lauri Markkanen. Right? You could literally start all 3 of those guys alongside LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Now, I would bring Colin Sexton off the bench. I think he'd be better off the bench. But I think at that point, now you got some, hang on a second, time out. Look at how we're looking here, right? Because now you could do something so let's say you got, your Kessler, your Sexton, and then your Markkanen, right? Well, you could, if you wanted to, you could kind of go a positionless thing. You could go LeBron at the point, right? Go D'Lo at the 2, Markkanen at the 3, 80 at the 4, with Walker Kessler at the 5, right? It's a big team, right? Problem is defensively, I don't know how good that would look, right? Because you're talking Lauri Markkanen, D'Angelo Russell, LeBron James. Defensively would probably not be great, but offensively that'd be pretty tough. More likely than not, I think what you would do is, for now, you'd probably have Kessler come off the bench, keep AD at the 4, or keep LeBron at the 4, AD at the 5, Markkanen at the 3, probably D'Lo at the point, and then you'd have to bring in like a Max Christie. I would almost go with Jared Vanderbilt, personally. Because you'd have D'Lo, Markkanen, and LeBron James for, your shooting. All three guys, 40% from three-point range. And then you'd have Anthony Davis, who could do Anthony Davis things. You need that point of attack, right? So I would go positionless, right? Again, you could like LeBron's starting point guard, D'Lo at the 2, but really LeBron's playing the 4. And, kind of go that route. And now Vando is basically your 2 guard as like the point of attack. But you have Markkanen, LeBron, D'Lo out on the perimeter. AD can still stretch the floor. Vando's kind of the one guy you wouldn't have in those. But you'd have size, you'd have versatility. I mean, you'd be pretty good at that point. If you could get all 3 guys, I like Sexton, but I think he is best as like an off the bench vacuum scorer. Not very good defensively. He can be at times. Like if he's locked in, focused, and just kind of engaged, he can actually be good defensively. But he kind of loses that focus at times. He also gets a ton of it. Like he's more of a 2 guard than he is a point guard. But that's fine, especially off the bench as just like a vacuum scorer. You just let him go to work. And yeah, like that's fine. I'm okay with that, right? So to me, if you had that, you'd have basically Walker Kessler. You'd have Colin Sexton as like your 2 main guys. You'd have Dalton Connect still, right? You'd still have Christian Wood, right? Like you'd have a nice balance. So you basically could have, you need to get a backup point guard, but can you bring in like a Tyus Jones? Can you convince them to take like, a Cam Reddish too in that deal? Like, hey, take Cam Reddish, take something, right? I'd have to like, well, the problem is you'd have to free extra salary. So, you're adding Kessler, like $22 million between him and Markkanen, and then another, 18, we'll call it 19 million. So let's call it $43 million, right? So can you send out $45 million in that type of deal, right? Or you'd have to send out $48 million. Right, which could be a little tough. But if the Lakers could, my point is, can the Lakers kind of finagle away to where you could maybe bring in a Tyus Jones, right? Kind of work with them, or maybe now you're doing like a salary dump thing, loading seconds like to another team, or maybe Utah's still that team. Maybe they're like, hey, we'll take a couple guys, here's some pick stuff. But at the then you could go, like I said, you could go like, let's say even if you don't get Tyus Jones, let's just keep it that straightforward. You'd have, like I said, you'd have Sexton, Max Christie, Dalton Connect, Christian Wood, and Walker Kessler as your 5 off the bench. Again, I'd prefer a better kind of playmaker off the bench, but I don't hate that. And you could always just have D'Lo, kind of stagger D'Lo and LeBron if you needed to, right? And you have Jalen Hood-Schifino. Can he kind of take strides? Can he kind of step into a bigger role? Right? I just kind of look at that. I go, okay, like, I think you'd have a great starting 5. I think you'd have great bench depth. I think you have versatility and everything. You could do worse than that. And now I think you're good enough to win a championship. And you got your backup center, right? But you also got your center for the future. So when LeBron leaves, you're just shifting AD to the 4. You're bringing Kessler into the 5, and then you got Markkanen at the 3, right? So now you got Markkanen, Kessler, and AD. And then you're just, maybe Max Christie's that guy that's taking the step into the 2 guard. And then, maybe Jalen Hood-Schifino eventually comes around and he is a legit, 2-way point guard. And now you got Schifino, let's say he actually evolves not into a star or anything like that, but let's say he turns into like a really good 2-way, can knock down the open 3, not like superstar, but like just a big body type, point of attack, knock down the 3, get to the basket type point guard. And then Max Christie, if he can develop into that legit 3 and D, it's not bad, right? He's pretty good going forward. Obviously, I think you'd probably need somebody else to kind of jump into that star status, unless Kessler really becomes, like a top center in the league, right? And then, or ideally you're hoping that like a Max Christie or a Dalton Connect somebody like that can really take some strides and take some leaps. But again, I don't hate the idea, depending on, if you could get Kessler, right? I don't know how much I feel about that package with just Markkanen and a Sexton, because if they would do something, and look, I've proposed the idea of taking on a Sexton to, like, you take on Sexton to get Kessler, or you take on Sexton to get a Markkanen. Like, you take on the bad contract in order to get the guy, right? That's kind of your leverage point compared to some of these other teams, right? Because you could still use a Colin Sexton, right? So it's like, hey, we don't have the pick return that some of these other teams have, but we could take on, like, hey, we could use a Sexton. A Sexton would be nice, right? Let's do that. And now you're kind of getting a Kessler and a Sexton, or, I had people throw out, and I've, touched on this before, like a John Collins. Not really high on that, but like, it's like, hey, if you could get, a Lauri Markkanen and all this, like, if you could get a Kessler, like, do you kind of take on the contract in order to get the pieces that you really want, but it's still a serviceable piece that could be part of your rotation, right? And at that point, you're pretty much set with your roster regardless. So it's not something where it's like, oh man, now what, right? So again, Sexton, he's still young enough. He's got growth. He's got development, right? You could still shape him and mold him into that guy. He's got to go get you 18 plus off the bench on a night. He can make some plays. He can do stuff defensively. Again, bit of a liability, but that's why I'd bring him off the bench, right? So, again, if I wouldn't just trade Austin Reeves for that. And again, it's not, I'm like, you can't trade Austin Reeves, right? Like Lauri Markkanen, Austin Reeves, like, I'd rather have Lauri Markkanen too, if I'm being honest. But I just have the concerns of, like, his contract, his injury history, right? A lot of those things. It's like, I would rather keep Austin Reeves, because Austin, like, if the Lauri Markkanen thing fails, Austin Reeves may be your way out, right? Like, same thing with, like, Zach LaVine. Like, Zach LaVine, his contract, like I said, will be more reasonable as time goes on. Yes, there's the injury concerns, but he's also more dynamic. Right? He can do more out there on the court, right? Although Lauri Markkanen, I think that there's an argument, he doesn't take away from what everyone else is doing. He doesn't need the ball in his hands. He's so good off ball, like things like that, right? Where LaVine is one of the best off ball catch and shoot players in the league, but he is best with the ball in his hands, just going and getting a bucket. But sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need that guy, right? That's the problem that the Lakers haven't had these last few years, is that consistent, like, hey, here's the ball, go get us a bucket guy, right? LeBron and AD have basically been that, but LeBron isn't this dynamic offensive scorer. Right, he's more of like look down, pull up three, and then, or he's just bullying you to the basket and getting to the basket. He's not some dude that's crossing you over, stopping on a dime, pulling up, off the dribble type thing. He can do it on occasion, but that's not really his game, right? AD, same thing. AD ain't out there like, yeah, he has handles, he can do some stuff, but he's not this, like, smooth, like, where Zach LaVine just has the athleticism, the explosiveness, all the things you're looking for him to just dominate and just, you put him on an island, he's going to come out, right, type thing. And that's kind of where I think the Lakers could really use a guy like that. But anyway, again, as always, this is a discussion, just a fun video. Again, don't take it too serious. I just kind of want to hear where your heads are at. Like, where are your thoughts as far as, like, what you'd be willing to give up for Lauri Markkanen if you get into Sexton, things like that. Would you take Sexton if you could get Lauri Markkanen, or do you think, like, no, we don't want Sexton, just Lauri Markkanen, right? Like, if that's the caveat, right? Like, hey, we'll trade you Lauri Markkanen, but you have to take Colin Sexton, otherwise no deal type thing. And would you be like, hey, okay, fine, right? Again, I would try to get Kessler, and I would try to clear salary. If I could get Kessler, Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton, and clear off, the $5 million or whatever I need to clear off in order to get a Tyus Jones or something like that, now we're in business. Now we can make that work. But again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, let me know. Love to hear it down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out, so we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.